Let's go. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Upon a Heathen Path. Before we even start to even hint what episode we're doing tonight, we're let's talk real quick. Because I got something to show you guys. Stevie's been asking me to show you. So here is my first batch of mead. As you can see, it's just a regular honey. It's Valhalla. It's the name for it. Okay. So I did change the brand a little bit. As you can see, it's called B&E Mead, right? There's no real significance to that. So I just changed it to my runic name. And don't know, obviously, it's Manez Radio Iwaz. We made, Kate and I, my girlfriend, we made a second batch of pineapple. And that was called Ragnarok's Pineapple. And we just bottled it this weekend. So we got three 33-ounce bottles out of a gallon of it, which it smelled really fucking good. It smelled super potent. And I'm not checking ABV on any of these because I don't really care. I don't care. The yeast that we're using should produce between an 11 to 15% alcohol. Again, we're not doing it to get hammered drunk. I mean, that's gonna just the bonus point of it, right? But it's more for the blots, for rituals and offerings and stuff like that. And obviously the occasional, sit down, have a nice glass of delicious ass mead. But we have a third batch here that is peach, and that one's named, which will be bottled this coming weekend. I don't have actually, but it might look funky. A picture of all of them, so there is, you guys are going to have a hard time kind of seeing that because of the light, but that's the pineapple. I think it looks super cool. So I had AI recreate some of the imagery here, and I had a friend of Kate's who makes stickers create the labels for me. So we have 4 bottles of the regular honey. We have 3 bottles of the Ragnarok pineapple mead, and then the batch we're doing this weekend coming up is Folkvanger nectar. So I think that one's gonna look pretty slick too. So it's pretty much all the same. Obviously the name just per batch changes. Stevie had a really good suggestion of doing a blood orange, and I'm leaning towards more of a name for it towards Suther's Doom, but I'm not sure how I want to go about that one yet. Just quick little plug in there. I'm starting to make some mead here. We'll see how it goes. It might taste like complete trash, but that's, whatever. I don't care. It's going to get drank anyways. But tonight we're just sipping on the old fashioned, the old reliable bullet rye. That's where we're at. So that's what's new with me. Stevie, what's going on? What's new? Oh, real quick. I know we didn't put out an episode last week. I'm having issues with Riverside. So if anyone has any suggestions, I'm trying to work through DaVinci Resolve through Blackmagic Studios, but also having some difficulties there. I don't really want to go back to using Clipchamp because it is so redundant and monotonous. If y'all have any suggestions on how to make editing a little bit more streamlined, I would greatly appreciate it if you throw it into the comments into this episode. Anyways, Stevie, what's new with you? What's going on?
Not much. Same old school. Work, flying out.
But we've got a trip planned or somewhere, right? You do?
I do. I'm going to get my white coat.
Let's go.
Yes.
What's that? Couple weeks, you said?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
Nice. So then we'll have to now introduce her as Dr. Stevie.
Yeah.
Right?
Not on here though. You don't have to.
It's only out of cordialness. It's a title. Earned title. Let's go.
No.
Right?
Still weird. I'm trying to learn. Our class last Friday, I was trying to be the doctors and diagnose your patients. Yeah, I'm still trying to learn to introduce myself as a doctor.
It's hard to talk about yourself.
It is.
I find it a little bit easier because I can disassociate that I'm talking to a camera. Even on the episodes where that wasn't you, and I do TikTok lives, and I'm just talking to project, and hell, I have conversations with myself all the time, and I'm why is it so hard to talk about myself? How to introduce myself? I'm just Eric, just a plain old Eric, not no doctor, just a dude who fixes shit for a living and drinks alcohol.
Right. I'm still trying to look at myself as a doctor too. I think just
Mm.
it's a big step. It's different because I'm still Stevie to me. Like when people say, "Oh, hey, doc," what do you mean?
Just hit him with the Bugs Bunny. What up, Doc?
Right.
There you go. Well,
We'll get there.
okay. We'll talk about, kind of alludes to today's episode of someone who, are they real? Are they not real? Or their titles change throughout their entire being, their history, their lore, their story. Today we're gonna talk about probably one of the most legendary figures that is not a god, right, of the Viking Age, and a warrior, farmer, just a man whose name still echoes to this day through history and legend and modern storytelling, and and a man who raided kingdoms and challenged kings, and whose death supposedly sparked one of the most devastating Viking invasions in all of European history, right? And I think you can already tell, like, this is going to revolve around Ragnar Lothbrok. And if you have seen the show Vikings, you've already probably had an image in your head of a clever, ambitious king who rose from farmer to king, but there was spaces in the middle, so farmer to jarl and earl and then king. But what you really find when you go into a more scholar dive, the truth is the real Ragnar is one of the biggest mysteries in Viking history. The biggest question is, was he even a real man? Was he several men? If you remember the episode where allegedly Ragnar turns himself over to um, the Northumbrians, and then they hand him over to King Aela. The seer says, you'll die when the blind man sees. And the blind man, says, I know who you are. They say you're 8 foot tall and you eat babies and this and that, right? So there's the in twain of, is he more than one person? Is he a giant? Nobody knows. Already the mystery within the show is creating a mystery of the character of the person. Or was he a legend that grew larger with each telling? But today, we're going to explore, the historical sources behind Ragnar, the legendary raids that supposedly made him famous, the story of his brutal death, and what came after that from the sons of Ragnar, or as a lot of people call it, Ragnar sons. Like, it's almost like a cult per se. And I personally feel it's more leaning towards it's almost cultish, and it just grew followers through stories of raids that have already been taken place, but nobody knows how they really started, because there's no paper back in the day. There was no record keeping or anything like that, other than what we can account for in some of the Eddas and some of the later writings of Snorri, right? Which we already know there is some contradiction with some of the things that he writes. But because whether Ragnar existed exactly as the stories say or not, his legend did help shape how the world remembers Vikings to some extent. Whether you're a scholar or you're new to just being a pagan, or whether you're interested in the history of Icelandic, Scandinavian, Norwegian, or anything like that, like, you've heard this name. So pour yourself a drink, settle in, and let's travel back to like the 6th century back of the Viking Age. Now, to understand the character of Ragnar, we need to understand the world that he lived in. And we can account for the Viking Age roughly began around 793 AD. And that's obviously probably not true, because that's when it was first documented. And that's when Norse raiders first attacked monasteries in Lindisfarne, right? And this raid itself absolutely shocked the European countries. Not just European countries, but Christian European countries. They were so bewildered by these Viking ships making way to their shores, right? Like, how? These little tiny ships. So, I mean, they probably weren't tiny. They're, long ships, but, no one was spared, right? Monks were killed, churches were looted, sacred artifacts that the Christians viewed they were stolen. And to the Christian kingdoms of Europe, the Vikings seemed like such a terrifying force from the north. You hear the term Northmen, being used quite often if you have watched the show Vikings. But from the Viking perspective, these raids were something else entirely. It was opportunity. It was a change of scenery. It was a new way to expand their life, their heritage, their bloodline, and just their overall just tired of being complacent with where they're at because it was so hard to survive in the northern countries, right? It was cold. So being a farmer in Viking age where you were farming goats, you were farming cattle, you were farming livestock. You weren't growing crops too much. And it was harder other aside from wheat and a lot of their nutritional resources were um, through trade. But once you get to Europe, you find these lands that are just vast with actual farms, crops. And like I said, Scandinavia during this time, it was such a harsh place to live. It was rocky, winters were extremely long, and resources were limited to even say the easiest, right? So many Norse warriors took to the sea in search for, wealth, trade, and reputation. And Norse culture, reputation literally meant almost everything to us. It's the downfall to us, but also like here trying to make a name for ourselves, trying to make a better life for our kindred, our kinsmen, and stuff like that, right? Because I'll repeat it again, and I've said it probably like 4 or 5 times on this podcast. One of the most famous lines from Wisdom poem, the Have 'em All, is cattle die, kingsmen die, you yourself will die, but the reputation of a dead man never dies if he earned it well. And for Vikings, glory was a kind of immortality to say. And if Ragnar was real, he, through stories, would have definitely earned that immortality per se. So, what the sources of Ragnar that we see, and just the biggest challenge that historians face with Ragnar is most of his stories were written hundreds of years after he supposedly lived, right? And two of the main sources are, Ragnar Saga, the Lothbrok, and Gesta Dornholm. And the second was written by a Danish historian, Axel Grammaticus, in the 12th century. Long after Ragnar allegedly lived, right? About 5 centuries. So it's hard to actually bite into that, I feel like. And these texts describe Ragnar as a heroic Viking king who led raids across Europe and fathered legendary warriors. But because of these stories were written so long ago, after the events that were described, historians believe Ragnar may be based on several different Viking leaders. And one candidate of those leaders would be Ragnaros, a Viking leader who attacked Paris in 1845. But others believe, through the show, Vikings, that Ragnar was the first one to attack Paris, and that he may be the composite figure and the legendary hero who built from multiple historic Vikings. But whether he was real or not, the stories about Ragnar were powerful enough to survive for centuries and even to this day. And the rise of Ragnar, according to legend, Ragnar began his life as a warrior, seeking fame, fortune, and one story claims that he earned his name Lothbrok, and that's not his real name, meaning hairy breeches, after wearing fur-covered pants to fight a giant serpent. So there's that. Like, how do you create any real story to that or any real background to it? Because yes, Viking stories sometimes get a little strange, they're a little off, but that's how they are. It's how we know it. But heroic monster fights were common in medieval storytelling. We hear it all the time with Thor fighting Jormungandr and Odin falling to Fenrir during Ragnarok, and just the Jotnar in general, and then dragons, and then, oh my god, you have the gods of war, you have, oh my god, what is the other, Game of Thrones, like, you have all these other things that, like, just make what sounds silly to other people are normal to us. Because if we are going to believe that Thor fought a giant serpent that cover the world, and then Fenrir was a wolf that was so large that he scraped the sky and the ground with his mouth, then we are just as liable to believe that dragons were just as real. So we can't discredit other stories and then say that only ours were real. I don't feel like that helps us make a stance for ourselves. But
Well,
go ahead.
hold on. Actually, the truth is that dragons were real and not dinosaurs. So that is a new thing.
Oh, okay.
That's
Whoa. Yeah, I would say we got to explain this here.
well, I had just seen it. It's a conspiracy theory, but I love them. And people are saying that it's a cover up, that dragons were actually real, but they just said it was dinosaurs to cover that up. And I think it was Japan. They just found a dragon head
Really?
and they have pictures and videos of it. Yeah. So I personally believe in dragons more than I would dinosaurs.
So I believe in both. I believe in both because they're well. I believe in both based on what we've been taught growing up. You know, the whole dinosaur Mesozoic age and era and all that, right? Because there's fossils to back that up, right?
I
But
don't think they're
okay,
real fossils.
stop.
No, I'm being so for real. Like,
What
I don't
what
think
are they?
dinosaurs are real. I think it's fake. I think it's fake. I really think dinosaurs are fake. I think it was just a man made and they just made it up. If the
So
fossils, like,
it's like real life
I
Jurassic
don't,
Park.
yeah, but it was dragons, not.
Okay, but okay, how is it how is it? How could you see that instead of dinosaurs, it being dragons instead? What was seen back then would have been dragons, but what we know now could be dinosaurs. You know what I'm saying? Could it be
I
that they
see
were
what you're
dragons
saying.
to
But
the but it's still real?
no, because dragons and dinosaurs are different if you think about it.
That's how we define it. I'm saying how they like in the past defined it.
But I'm saying they actually think, like, I mean, flying dragons could be considered dinosaurs, but only the flying ones, not T Rex.
How do you
I
know
don't
that? We
think
don't know
those
that
are.
though.
I'm just saying. I just think dragons were real, and I think that's why so many religions, especially in like the Eastern, they all like China. They celebrate the year of the dragon. You know what I mean? Nobody talks about dinosaurs over there. Nobody does. We do.
Oh yeah.
It's really more of like the East, like the Western. So what? Dinosaurs were just here in America.
No, I mean they're found all over. Like the fossils are found all over.
Even England talks more about dragons than dinosaurs. The only ones that associate dinosaurs really is North America, if you think about it.
Huh?
This is just my
Bye. Love you.
bye. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
But no,
you're
that's
entitled
like,
to. Like not arguing that.
I mean, and I like, that's just how I feel. I know we were talking about Ragnar, but like, and people think we're weird for like our, you know,
Our beliefs.
stuff, but other people, religions believe in almost the same like we do. It's just two different aspects. It's
Or do they
I
or do they not believe it entirely?
I don't
Not
know. I mean,
not
I think
just not just dragons, not just our religion. Dinosaurs like altogether. Like what you're saying, you believe dinosaurs were fake. Which okay. Do they disbelieve all of it? And they think it's all fucking fake.
no, I don't think everybody thinks it's all fake. I think majority of people and a lot of conspiracy theories are coming true. And like it's hard to tell what is real and what's not because we weren't there at that time. So like with Ice Age, I don't think it was a real ice age like people say it was.
Yeah,
I think
who's to know?
exactly.
It could have
Like
been a specific area that could have been in the ice age, or was it? Are they talking about the North and South poles during that?
right,
Right? I mean, who knows?
because they flip. I don't know. I just know that there were cities, like Atlantic City, the other city. There's another one like under us that I think we don't know about and that we've been lied to. And that's where the dragons, like
Yeah.
they literally found in Japan a whole city with the dragon head.
Now,
I'm just saying.
could it all be climate driven, where these creatures were just discovered? Right? Like dragons were more European and then um, Asian.
Dinosaurs?
right? And then dinosaurs are more relative to what we know as the Americas. You know what I'm
I
saying?
don't.
Like
No, I see what you're
we
saying.
find that with a lot of things now.
We do,
People in general and animals already we find that in specific breeds of animals, right? Is that kind of the
but my
same
thing
thing?
is,
We are
if they could fly, the dragons could fly. Why would they not come to America?
because the Ice Age.
No, I don't even think the Ice Age was real, but I won't go into that. I'm just saying, I really, that's just mine. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think dinosaurs are real, even though I look like T Rex because I got T Rex arms, but they're not real. And I think, like, the Indiana Children's Museum, they have, like, dinosaur fossils. They're not real. It's all fake.
What are they
It's
made out of?
literal fake. Growing up as a child, I'm like, oh, these dinosaurs. It's all fake. Okay. Nothing special about it.
So I've gotta argue that though. Well, okay, how can you say or believe like what we believe was real, but yet this is fake? Is it
Because
because it's just
I
the not carbon dating, but like the 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 timeline that it was put to was way before
that
ours?
no, I just think, like I was saying, I really think that they were saying dinosaurs were a thing to cover up dragons because they don't want people to know that dragons were real. Why do you think there's so many movies based on dragons? Look at the princesses. Look at, like, I mean, I'm just saying there's always dragons. And then they come out with Jurassic World to cover it up. And that's something I'm just saying. I personally just think we can go into a whole episode on this on why. I don't want to take away from,
We're already getting there.
because just like that, I mean, I already disagree that Ragnar is. I don't think he's real. I mean, that's just my, like I said, my opinion. So just kind of like how you believe dinosaurs are real. I mean, if you do, and I don't, just like you believe Rag is real. I
I'm not sure. I'm in
like, yeah,
cahoots.
like, and I think that's my biggest thing is I don't want to say he's not real. I just don't know enough to say, oh, he's real.
Correct. Okay, now we're back to where we're at. I agree with that. I don't think there's enough to say that he was a real person, but somehow the name became real. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just like the name. Like, there's so many names that can become real, doesn't mean they are real. Maybe people, you know, had to come up with that name to help others understand more about the Norse, the Scandinavian, how they,
Yeah.
they weren't just Vikings who, went and raided. But that's what Ragnar is about. But it talks prior to him before he even was that or how he became that. And that's what I like is he was a husband, a father, he was poor, he wasn't rich, and it kind of talks about how a lot of men back then were that before they became those raiders and those.
They were normal
and,
people.
and I think that is why he was written about. Was I don't think it was one man. I think it was
A group.
multiple.
Yeah, a group.
And it was to bring a name to those who did grow up or not, yeah, grow up and live like that to become this.
See, and that's why I use the word almost is his name more of a tribe, right? Not just a
Right.
person. And that's my belief is that it was more of a tribe. Because if you, I don't know if anyone is anyone else has ever heard this, but okay, in the show, Rollo is his brother, but in scholar text, he's not. There's no proof that Rollo or that Ragnar had a brother at all.
Because
Rollo,
Rollo was king of Norway.
right, but he was also born. I probably getting wrong on the number, but 75 years after Ragnar's even initial raid on Paris. So Rollo didn't come about until mid ninth century. Well, that's when you start seeing actual text and scripture being actually documented. That's I think it's more to keep the show alive. I think they created a character like Rollo to keep the show going because if you just go off of Ragnar just raided England.
Right. And then you
That's
also
it.
bring in Floki.
Right, and then
If you go off the show, who supposedly found Iceland.
Iceland, yeah.
But wasn't that Leif Erikson, like his father?
Right, which was Leif Erikson, yes.
Big Red, right?
Big Red. but who was
So
banned from Scandinavia for
exactly.
murder, alleged murder.
Yes.
And that was, if you remember in the show, or if you paid enough attention to it, Erickson the Red was prior to the show's recordings too. So
Exactly.
it couldn't have been like in the show. It could not have been Floki's father.
No, which we know that the show is very, it's fake.
Right. It does.
You
It
got
has
a lot of
some arguments to it, but it has some truth to it.
It does. And you got a lot of people who come to the Norse religion after watching that, but expecting that show to portray the actual religion.
Right.
And that's where me and you have to kind of like separate, because our show, it has a little bit of our religion, but it is nothing like the actual religion. If that makes sense. Like, it's not factual.
Yeah, it doesn't perpetuate Norse religion. Right. It doesn't
Right.
perpetuate Asatru, doesn't perpetuate Thralt or anything like that. It just gives a muddy insight to what the era might have looked like.
Right.
And
But my question to you, do you think Lagertha is real?
I don't know. I think very much so, just like Ragnar. There's not enough.
That was weird.
That was weird.
The spirits be coming at us.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying my opinion.
Lagertha said, "Don't mess with me."
Like, if your fucking name's something else, just holler at me. Like, put it up on the screen. But
Right.
like, I don't know, because there's not enough.
See,
there's not enough scholar scripture, or there's not enough evidence that I can say yes and no.
and I'm the type of
just
person,
say I don't
have
know.
to have that. Exactly. Like, I have to know the facts, and if I don't see any actual facts, I
Right.
can't say it's real.
Right. That's very hard. But okay. So we do, famous Vikings that Ragnar allegedly fathered, right? We have Bjorn Ironside, which Bjorn translate to bear. Bear Ironside, which fucking badass fucking name. That fucking ass name.
I love Bjorn.
Oh my God. And dude, I'd probably go gay for him.
Now, I do think he is real.
Yeah.
I think Bjorn is 100%. I do think
I hope everybody
Bjorn
does that.
Yeah, like he's out of all of them. I think Uba's real, but I don't know if he's actually Bjorn's brother.
Well, I mean,
because I don't know that.
According to the show, Ragnar got around.
But Ragnar did get around, but like, we don't know if he's real.
See, that's why
multiple men
right
that gave birth, and that's where all these freaking names came from. But who are we to say? I personally just don't know.
And then Ivar the Boneless, which when you read the scholar script, he wasn't boneless. He got that name because he was there's not really a word to describe him other than he was not merciful. He was not easygoing. He was not nice. He was very very harsh in his ratings and his behavior.
He was nothing like his fake brothers.
He's nothing like his fake brothers. Sigurd Snake in the Eye. So Oslog.
I think she was real though. I think Oslog was real.
But then birthed those three, Ivar and Uba and then Sigurd.
But by one man, not Ragnar. I don't think it was Ragnar.
But, okay, do you remember the show? There was a few episodes where a character named Harbard came into, and a little quick bit. If you remember where Thor looks to travel by ferry, he is met by a man, and there is probably the only time you'll ever see Odin be sarcastic in any kind of scripts. It did it again. What the fuck?
What is up with that?
I don't know.
You said Odin this time, and
it did.
I just said it, and it did it again.
So was Odin Lagertha. See, this is where it started. Anyways, but I said Harbard too. So Thor and Harbard, who he does not disclose his name, exchange some joking and pleasantries back and forth. And the ferryman asks, who are you? He goes, I am Thor Odin's son, as one would say. And he goes, who are you? I'm Harbard. So in the show, Oslog is out there banging Harbard in a fish tent somewhere, but
I'm not gonna lie, I did not end up watching, I think, the last 2 seasons because I didn't agree with it. So
before or after Ragnar died, I can't remember.
After Ragnar died, and then like I'm trying to think. I think it was, how many seasons are there? 5?
I want to say there's more than that. I want to say there's 7 or 8.
Okay, so I think I stopped on the 5th season.
Okay.
Like Ragnar died, and then Bjorn. It was kind of like when they were going to Bjorn was going to the East countries,
Okay,
like
so when
or
he
Middle
was
East.
traveling with Rollo.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
quit watching it at that point.
Okay, so okay.
Or no, when Floki found the island. Wasn't that around the time when Floki found not the island, but
No,
Iceland?
because well, it might have been at the end of that season, but it was
Yeah,
definitely
so that's
after.
the season I never watched anymore. And then I haven't watched The Last Kingdom either. I don't really watch Viking shows because I don't like it. I don't know.
There's one I'll recommend. It's called The Northman.
I've heard that, but isn't
It's a
that the
good
funny one?
No, it's not.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking I watched this funny one before. I think it was The Northman. I don't know.
No,
But
this
they were
one's
like
called The
making fun
Northman.
of.
Yeah, that was
But
it was a good one. It was a good show.
it's kind of that goes to the same for me. I don't watch medical shows.
That's fair.
Like
So
I
that's
don't know.
complete opposite of me. Like, okay, so like I do maintenance, dude. I can watch like machining and fixing and maintenance like clips and shows, dude, all day long. I don't know why. It's just still fascinating. I'm like, I could do that, but like I'm still fascinated by it.
Like I used to watch Grey's Anatomy. I watched it from the like 2007 all the way up until COVID. And then I quit watching it because it became political. And then, like I said, with Vikings, I quit watching that. And my professor at school was like, watch The Pit. It's how your daily lives are actually going to be. It's the closest show to it. So I watched one episode
I have not
and
watched.
like I'm a Norse. I can't watch Norse shows. I'm about to be a doctor. I can't watch doctor shows. But give me all the K dramas because I'm never going to be Korean. I'll watch them all. So
Okay, what about? Have you ever seen the show Scrubs?
Scrubs.
Yeah.
Is that the funny one?
Yeah.
I think I've watched
Fucking
one or 2 episodes of that.
fucking love that shit. This is so good.
I'm trying to think. Think I watched some. I used to watch ER with my mother when I was young,
Days of Our Lives.
but I love Days of Our Lives. Actually, all my children. I watch
All
soap
my
operas all the time.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
and where they were doctors in that one. Yeah,
Mm. Yep.
always killing people in that one.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it?
It was
I
the
don't.
man. It was the
but
man
no,
with the
like-
candlestick.
Right. Hey, I love the game Clue. Like I'll watch those type of shows because I'm never going to be a detective. You know, I used to
Yeah.
watch CSI, and I went to school one time, and they had this program where you could be a CSI forensic person, and it was like an elective that you got to do, and I did it my freshman year, and I said, nope, I will never do that. So
Got it.
if it's something personal and dear to me, I won't watch it. That's just who I am.
You don't. Okay, so you don't want it to ruin or give a false personification.
Yeah, because I will nitpick and be like, okay, well, this isn't real, and this isn't real, and this isn't gonna happen. I don't want to be like that when I watch a show. You know what I mean? I just want to be able to watch it. I will nitpick.
You gotta dissociate yourself from the show. Personal belief. You gotta dissociate yourself from the show.
Look, I don't know how to be doing all that. I'm so real in life that I don't even know how to dissociate myself.
Dude, that's
Like people always say, I dissociate. What do you mean? I
No.
don't know what people mean.
nothing exists outside of what I'm currently doing.
Everything in my world. Like right now, we're doing our podcast. I'm thinking, I need to be doing school.
Nope.
That's just, I have 50 things going on.
I do too. I just don't give a shit about them. That's this.
See, a lot of people are like that. I just can't. I sure can get off topic easy though.
Yeah, indeed. Me too. I will not deny that. I can fucking tell 12 stories within one. I get it. But okay, because we're pushing. So Ragnar's death, right? Ragnar's death.
Mhm.
It's one of the more famous ones that we know outside of lore and mythology that we can read through the text that we know instead of storytelling, right? And according to the sagas, Ragnar launched another raid into England, but this time things went terribly wrong. His forces were depleted, they were defeated entirely, and they were captured by King Aela of Northumbria. And instead of a quick execution, Ragnar was thrown into a pit filled with venomous snakes. Now, in the show, that is relative. But in the show that is not relative to what I just told you is Ragnar travels with Ivar. And him and Ivar actually kill the group that go with him. And then there was things leading up to that people were discomforting with traveling with him. But there's a difference in there, right? That they weren't defeated by raid; they were defeated within internally. And but in the show, you still see this scene where Ragnar gives this great speech that he is gladdened to be met by the Valkyries to summon him home. Right? It's such a. I don't care if you don't think the show's real, you don't think the story's real. The speech itself in the scene is just chef's fucking kiss.
I have to agree. It gladdens me to know that the Valkyrie something with Odin.
Summon me home,
Yes.
and I will be
It's
drinking
that.
ale from Coon's horns. And he can't wait to meet his sons in Valhalla to hear about how they defeated and all the stories. And I was just, oh God, if you don't get riled up over it, I don't know what to tell you. But, and then the famous line, one of the famous lines is how the little piggies will grunt when they hear how the old boar suffer. Like, just saying that just makes me feel like I know my kids are like about to roll up on somebody and just fucking curb stomp the shit out of them if something bad were to happen to me. Now they won't do it because they're a bunch of bitches, but maybe one day they will. But just that symbolism of talking about his sons, calling them piglets was kind of shitty, but they weren't small. And when they heard his death, they came to revenge their father in such a glorious way. In different ways they went about it and in the show within storytellings, right? And in 18 or not 18, well, because we're way fucking out of our time here. In 865, Viking forces invaded England in just enormous numbers, and this was dubbed the Great Heathen Army. And unlike earlier Viking raids, this was not about just quick attacks and leaving. They came with fucking purpose. They came to conquer, and that's when you start to see Anglo-Saxon kingdoms falling one by one, and eventually Northumbria by King Aella was captured. And according to later sources, he was executed by one of the most infamous punishments in Viking legends, which we all know is the Blood Eagle. And if you don't know the Blood Eagle, it is got to be the most excruciating and painful death I could ever think of. You cut their back open and you hack the back of their ribs from the spine with an axe, peel it apart, and you cut their lungs away from their body and drape them over their shoulders. Now, all while their arms are tied to posts, and at the end of it, they are supposed to take the form of an eagle, and obviously there will be a lot of blood, so blood, right? Then the form of an eagle. Now, the lore is to say if you go through the entire thing without making a sound or scream or even wince of agony, you have earned your way into Valhalla. But you gotta be one bad motherfucker to go through all that and not even fucking make it, because that is just, there's no way. I could never sit through something like that.
It's just gross.
It's gruesome. It's
gory.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, that's the shit you see in, like, fucking horror movies.
Like, no, thank you.
But, like, what a hell of a way to die.
That is one hell of a way to die.
That's rough. So the story, like I said, the story claims that, the ribs were cut from the back, his lungs pulled out forward, and those were resembled his wings. And now historians, they debate whether this ritual actually happened, because it's hard to find any actual incantation that this took place. Now, seeing how England and Francia and other countries had torture devices, it's not hard to say that this was also possible in a more primitive stance. So I'm not saying it was exaggerated based on what we know and like the devices that we see out there, the death coffin and stuff like that, and the torture rack, and I mean the fucking guillotine, like that shit's out there. So like there's simple shit like this has to exist too, to some degree. But some believe it was it's more symbolic than and entirely exaggerated by later storytellers. But the legend reinforced one powerful fucking message. You don't kill a Viking leader unless you're ready for a son's to come fuck you up. So again, take it with however you see. I think it was something that was probably fucking done to more heinous crimes and not just as a revenge ritual. But you know what? Like, to get a little bit more off topic here, like, I think we should bring blood eagles back to certain criminal offenses. If you did something to harm a child and or force yourself upon somebody, you get a blood eagle. I'm giving up. Dude, whatever's going on with this needs to just stop. Like, I'm with you, okay? But I think it needs to come back. More, like, let's not, like, go all crazy with executions anymore. Make it simple. Let the family take care of it. Let's go back to stoning and whatnot. But that's not a shared view that I have all the way around. No.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, because then maybe there wouldn't be so many of those issues going on.
Speaking of a special victims unit, heinous crimes, right?
Something.
I agree.
But
I mean,
it's punishment.
Public executions need to come back.
They do.
This might get us canceled. It's okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm not really commenting on it.
You know what? I don't care. Fuck them. You don't like it, then don't do the crime. That's all I gotta say. If you don't, it's all I gotta say. Anyways, so today Ragnar Lothbrok sits at the crossroads of history and myth. He may have been a real Viking leader, or several leaders merged into one story, or he could have been a legendary hero created by storytellers. But the impact of his legend I feel like it's undeniable. His story influenced a lot of medieval sagas and Scandinavian folklore, and as we see, modern pop culture. And, things like the show Vikings, Ragnar has become one of the most recognizable figures of the Viking Age that we can sort of put on paper, but not put on paper, besides, mythological lore and stuff like that. But maybe the most Viking thing about Ragnar isn't whether or not he was real, but it's the idea behind the story of Ragnar Lothbrok, right? In Norse culture, the goal wasn't to simply live, it's to live to be boldly and that your name would be remembered. And Ragnar achieved that exactly in a sense of saganism and then storytelling, right? So was Ragnar real? We don't know. We may never know. But his story, the story of Ragnar Lothbrok, has survived over thousands of years. And from Viking sagas to medieval chronicles to modern television and books, and in many other ways, that's exactly what the Vikings wanted, right? Not to just live, but to be remembered. So thanks for listening to this episode, guys. I know we got a lot of sideways, and there's a lot of spiritual interference here going on, apparently. And I fucking love it.
Me too.
I'm here for it.
I'm here. I'm all here.
Let's go. So until next time, guys, stay curious and keep exploring the old stories. Bye.
Bye.